Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi. Welcome to Poetry in Brief. Poetry in Brief is just a community of invited readers to get together and support each other and share some of our poems. This month, April, our theme is the loss. And I don't know why, but this was the most popular month. Everybody said, I want to read a poem about loss. I want to read a poem about loss, which I think is sad, but also beautiful in a way that people want to share their emotions and feelings with each other. So our invited readers this month are Natalie Marino, Chandra Grace Joner, Kaitlin Neal, and Jessica Knuth. Welcome. I also have Darrell on my list, but he hasn't arrived yet, so I'm not sure if we'll see him. I want to start by introducing Natalie Marino. I see your name everywhere, so I assume everybody knows who you are. Best of Net and Pushcart nominee. You have a book with Finishing Line Under Memories of Stars, and then your newest book is would you call this a micro chap or a chap of the sonnets with bottle cap End of Revels?
I think it is kind of like a micro chapbook. It's very short and they're connected poems, and the poems, each poem is very short. And it basically it's told in the voice of Sylvia Plath right after she dies. And what I was hoping to do with this is to talk about how art lasts forever, even if the artist doesn't last forever, and that's definitely what's happened with her poetry. And they are kind of like sonnets, they're like half sonnets. So instead of 10 syllables per line, they have 5 syllables per line. And instead of 14 lines, there's each 7 lines. And the reason why I did it that way is they're kind of like a crown of sonnets, but they're modified, just like Sylvia Plath is in many ways like a hero to poetry, but also only a half hero because she, in her life, obviously, she left her 2 young children when she decided to end her life. And so that's kind of what part of the message is in the form of the sonnets.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's a really beautiful piece, and I like the message of what you're
Thank you.
doing with that new chapbook. Okay, so Natalie, let's start with you.
I really like this topic of loss. I think that that's really what brought me to poetry. I didn't really write poetry until I didn't write poetry at all until I was 40. And, I was an English or literature major in college, so I read a lot of poetry, but I never tried to write any of it myself. But a few years after I lost my mother to lung cancer, I don't think I really processed it when it happened, and the writing of a lot of poems about loss really helped me like come to terms with that loss. So I'd like to read a poem I wrote a few years ago about my mother and dying. It's called Songbird. Before the blue light of morning, your breath loses itself. Even the sycamores outside the window acknowledge your end with their sudden stillness. You chose my birth and watched me walk in the sun and then into the world's grief, but we were not new together. Did it seem so the first time I became mesmerized by snow? Have I heard the last of your voice before I define absence completely? You never told me how much I cost you. Um, I have a second poem that is kind of an ironic poem about loss. It's titled Instructions for Escaping Grief. And it's ironic because I think what happens with grief is that you may expect it to have an end, but it really doesn't. It just changes. And so this poem is ironically giving instructions on how to escape grief, even though the speaker knows that that's not really possible. Instructions for escaping grief. Be hard as a diamond, harder than anything else around. Be older than almost anything, 3 billion years older. Be like Lucy, the constellation in Centaurus with a core big as the moon. Be like an ancient Greek and rename yourself Adamus. Be unbreakable. Be invincible. Be used for an industrial purpose, a chameleon changing color. Deny your traces of boron so you can avoid being blue. Be what you were when you were born, when you were formed under pressure. Be hidden in a river or the ocean. Be taken to the Earth's surface and ignore being afraid to ride a volcano. So all of that is based on actual diamonds. So I'm describing diamonds, and Lucy is a constellation named after diamonds.
That was
Thank you for
beautiful.
listening.
Thank you, Natalie. I thought it was interesting how merged grief and loss, which is exactly what I did when I designed this, was I called it the loss poems about grief. So for me, it's also synonymous. But one thing I like about this series is somebody else can interpret it completely differently. So we'll
Yeah.
see what everybody else says. Now, Natalie, I said I would ask, how has grief or loss shaped your writing? And maybe you could also tell us why you didn't start writing poetry until you were in your 40s.
Well, I don't know. I kind of gave up on literature when I decided to go to medical school. And I thought they were so separate. But, after practicing medicine for several years, I realized maybe doctors need it more than other people do because, we're taught to empathize with patients, but not really ourselves. And we deal with a lot of very heavy things all the time. And so I kind of shut off that side of my brain, I think. And then when I rediscovered it, it really helped me experience my own feelings, which I think in medicine, you're almost taught not to do that. And it harms people after a while. You do that for a few years and it's really hard on a person. And so I'm not really sure why. I just thought it was kind of challenging. I thought, oh, I'll try to write a poem. I'll see what comes out. And in terms of the topic of loss, like I really think like every poem I write is about loss. It's either trying to hold on to memories, trying to capture like today's moment because I know I'm going to lose it, or kind of trying to deal with the future, in that I have children, I have a husband, that you look out into the future and this is all temporary, and being able to like think and like write about that is pretty much like every subject of it's the subject of every one of my poems, I think. And so I really love this topic. It really guides all of my writing.
I like how you talked about that poetry is about empathy. And
Mhm.
at least for my practice, I would say I totally agree. Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you.
Our next reader is Chandra Grace Joner, coming to us from Canada. She's a poet, but she also just released her first fiction book, which is a combination of fiction, although I see some similarities to her real life, and also folk tales. So it's a really interesting book. I really enjoyed it. You can request it for your library or buy it online as well. And I will turn it over to you. This is called Naked in Turkey, by the way, Naked in Turkey. Has an apple on the cover. It's a very cool book. Chandra.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me here. This is really wonderful. And congratulations on your book launch. That's very exciting. And yes, my book launched last weekend, actually. So that was pretty cool. Thank you for mentioning it. Today, I'm going to read a poem called The Transplant. I'm only going to read one. I was really sick last week and I wasn't even sure if I'd have the breath for one poem. So I'm going to just do one. The transplant is also inspired by a line from Sylvia Plath's poem, Three Women, a Poem for Three Voices. A very particular line. So I don't know how many other Plath fans there are, but maybe you can, if you are a fan, you might recognize the line. I don't know. Um, so here it is. I'll just leave it at that. The transplant. I stitched and I sewed, suturing life into myself like a precious organ. At first, it seemed my body and its quiet mourning rejected this transplant. This new old thing sewn inside me lay quiet and still. A wasted effort, I was certain, until one day it pulsed, rippled, and thrummed, slow but steady. What was it worth after so much loss to undertake such a risky intervention? With grief as sole nourishment, to go without seemed starvation. Weaning painful punishment as the organ thrived. Its throbbing made me doubt, reconsider, whether living again was really worth it, when before it was easier, quiet and safe, dull but steady. Now life beats to an anthem inside me, my careful stitch is a success. Some days it flails, seems like it will fail, give out. Most days it is a fevered pitch, a mix of despair-driven hopes, tempered with not so lovely rages, a rhythmic tempest, tempo and staccato, bold and heady.
I really liked that kind of look at grief and sadness mixed with anger. At least that's what I took from your poem. I loved that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And how has grief and loss influenced your work?
Well, like Natalie, it's pretty much all my poetry is about. Why is that? I think life is just managing one loss after another, really, right? The loss of people and experiences and different eras of our life, the loss of anything. I mean, a lot of my poetry is about the loss of even hope, and it just kind of shapes it consistently. Um, the loss of identities as we go through life is a big one for me. So yeah, it's an ever-present theme.
It's interesting the idea of identity,
Hmm.
mixed with loss. I like that, and that resonates as well. Okay, Chandra, here's something interesting. Jessica, where are you right now?
Right now, I'm in Istanbul. That's where I live.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
hi. I lived in Izmir.
Okay,
Yeah,
nice,
well,
cool.
that was probably the greatest time in my life. I loved living in Turkey.
Yeah, it's I've been here for 3 years, but I'm moving back to the States in June.
Okay.
I'm pretty sad about it,
Yeah,
honestly. It's been nice.
understandable. Understandable. Well, enjoy your last few months there.
Thanks.
well, Jessica, you would definitely enjoy Naked in Turkey, Chandra's new
Yeah,
book.
and I have to check it out for sure.
Our next reader is Kaitlin Neal. Caitlin's work explores identity and connection, and they have a chapbook coming out soon with Shadow and Sax, so you can tell us a bit about that Rabbit Head Gut. Also in Canada, right? Okay,
Yeah.
Canadian friend. Okay, welcome.
Um, hi, hi everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. Yeah, my book is coming out later this month. I'm super excited. This is my first poetry chapbook. It kind of explores belonging through my own experiences in life and kind of like the belonging in your body, in yourself, and identity in those around you, and the ways we kind of transform into not a human in those like feelings and memories that feel the most human. So check it out when it comes out. I'm super excited. Uh, Today I was gonna read something else. I was gonna, maybe talk about loss in some other way, but last week my grandfather passed away, and so I decided, I'd honor him by writing and reading something here about him. This poem, comes from the loss of my grandfather, but it's more about what he gains when his spirit and his bones are brought back to Newfoundland. So this is called Before the End of Boss Wallace. They will fly the seagulls at half-mast and finish the milk in its can. The sisters will wave across the wharf where only colors exist for the postcard as you come as sea foam to the rock. The foxes and the rabbits have turned the berry brambles into darts, with fishing hole ice circles ready for triple 20 on the bake apples. There are sheds and kitchens to welcome you home, and they will sing like your father, jig like your wife, and drink like you. The cod recite an ode to your cone-white mustache, how its fins curled up and swam in the air when you bobbed for vowels. On the coast, seals kiss the slips and fan out their cards for a game they'll know they'll lose. The lighthouses will blink away the salt water in their eyes, the signs will chalk out their numbers, and the fishermen, which is every man, woman, and child, will doff their sun-yellow oilskins. And the wax will melt off of you as the rain and sea re-embrace, only small once again, walking back before the end of Boss Wallace. Thank you.
That was beautiful, and I commend you for being here and reading that just, so soon. I really loved the idea of the sea mixing together because it's such a mysterious place, I think, in our lives, and I thought that was really beautiful, Kaitlin.
Thank you.
So tell us, I mean, more recently, obviously, you've had this big loss in your life, but prior to that, how did loss shape your poetry?
Well, I feel like it kind of started my journey with poetry. I started writing as a kid to process the death of my mother. And so I had like a journal where I would write to her, memories, feelings, hopes, dreams, you know, dealing with loneliness and sadness and trying to process the weird ways that grief kind of manifests as a kid. Um, so it kind of shaped my writing from the very start. That's where I started um, writing poetry. I remember writing this one poem as a kid, kind of contrasting how other kids would like get to go to brunch with their mothers, and I would have to go to the cemetery. And so that kind of started my love for poetry, but it also showed me how grief is really powerful, not just in the healing process, but also in the ways um, we're able to create love letters to the people that we care about through poetry, and being able to write these beautiful pieces that um, keep the people that we're writing about alive just a little bit longer.
That's an interesting idea of grief as love, as an expression of love. I really like that. Our next reader is Jessica Knuth, author of Animalia or Animalia? I'm going to pronounce that wrong.
Animalia.
Animalia. Okay, great. And you're the fiction editor at Rawhead. I've worked with John before. Great,
Yes.
cool publication. And Kaitlin, you read for them also, is that true?
Yes, I'm a poetry
Okay.
reader.
Okay, good connection. Yeah. Okay, Jessica, we'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to read two poems. Both are about my father. He passed away from cancer when I was 18, I think, but he was sick from the time I was 11. So it was a big part of my childhood and my development. But anyway, the first one is called Metastatic. My father could not speak, his vocal cords charred. The kiss of chemotherapy and radiation melting the lining of his brain cavity like hot wax. His thoughts, erratic and fragmented, neurons snapping and firing blankly into the dark. The nurse shaved his head before the operation. The big scar, swollen and pink, fish hooked from frontal lobe to cerebellum, the way a mountain, jagged and sharp, rises out of the sand. My mother collected tears into a tissue, some for what was, but many more for what would never be. Nerve cells reaching and reaching into the dark. My father's eyes lit up from within, neurons exploding like fireworks over the sea. And the second one is called The Dying Room. When I was 6, you took me fishing. The water was clear and shining blue, dipping toes into lake water, the warm sensation of spring interring itself into our bodies, just to let us know summer's coming soon. Now I stand over you, your face the color of paper left in the rain. Your body is a desert where blackbirds sit on Joshua trees, sinking into the coyote moon, the horizon opening up larger than forever. In the morning, you will be riding horses over the mountain peaks, the sand beneath their feet soft as powder, the sun in front of you, a copper disk, opening up and up, larger than forever. You will walk right into it, forgetting the nurses, their metal instruments, the doctors, their icy hands, forgetting me, the things you taught me in the shade of that summer.
Beautiful and sad. I really liked the title of your second piece, especially.
Thank you. Yeah.
And tell us how loss has shaped your work.
So I really relate to the things our other poets have said tonight. I think I write multi-genre pieces, but with poetry specifically, it's always born out of grief for me. I can't write poetry when I'm happy. So I think it's just my body's way of processing that information, that sadness, that loss. And that's the only way I think I know how to deal with it. So that's it, just have to get it out on the page.
So poetry as processing
Mm-hmm.
emotions, almost. I like that idea as well. That's what I wrote down, Natalie's idea of poetry as empathy, and then Chandra's idea as poetry as identity, and Kaitlin's idea poetry or grief as love, and then your idea of grief as process. I like that as a theme. So today we are a little short and we are poetry in brief, but we haven't done this before. I see some friends in the room. I would open it to you if you had a piece about grief or loss that you wanted to add. Nicholas, Stuart, Sandra, or Candice, and Dana or Donna. Dana? If you have a piece you'd like to share, you can. And if you are scrounging around for one, I'll tell about some things we have coming up immediately after this, well, on the hour. So noon my time, which is literally nobody's time. So 1 o'clock Central. We are doing a 3 women book launch celebration. Candice's book, another place altogether. My debut poetry book, Record Player Life, the B-side, and Rocio Franco's book, Where the Monarchs Never Die. So you can hang around. We'll leave this room open, or you can leave and come back for that celebration of women identifying writers. May 2nd is our next Poetry in Brief. I'm teaming up with presses now for the summer. So I'm teaming up with Wild Roof Journal. So Erin Lolito and I sat down and chose our readers together and invited them. And so that theme is going to be While Abroad. So poems about, well, we'll see. I think poems about travel, but we'll see how people interpret the theme. That will also be followed by another 3 women, 3 books, but I haven't announced who's coming to that one yet. So if you'd like to stick around, please do for 3 women, 3 books on this link or rejoin this same link on the hour. Sandra, Nicholas, Donna, or Candice, would any of you like to read?
I have
I'm happy to. Oh, Sandra, you go first. You go first.
Go first. Okay. A new poem in this April Poetry Month as an after poem to someone who wrote about a full moon. This is called When the Moon is New, which is, you don't see it when it's new. That's the new moon. When the moon is new, She hides behind my eyelids, pulls the spring tide over my head. Bright stars appear as tiny lights webbed in teardrops. When the moon is new, she smells of vapors from a sea that took my mother, left me searching for tendrils of silver hair. Her voice is a whooshing echo in my bones, an ancient vibration of shaken marrow. She grabs my hand, whisks me behind a curtain of black velvet sky, breathes upon my skin until I shine, luminous as a full moon. Thank you.
A poet and her moon. I think I said that to you last week, didn't I? Yeah, beautiful, Sandra. Candice.
Sure. Thank you so much. So this is in the theme of loss as well, but this deals with the loss of a dog. The leashed after is that we are left behind, not that they are gone, not that their cold, wet nose is now a curled sycamore leaf, brittle, left for memory to vine and clover wide, like oxalis spreading low and lawless through a feral LA morning. As our own collars rattle, too, tight, tugging us along the thousand leashes of life, training us to be good, when all we ask is a chance to love something pure, as only paws and fur can be. Thank you.
Oh, Candice got LA in there and a dog. I know that. I'm not surprised. No, beautiful. Donna?
Hi, yeah, I have a little poem I can read about grief. This was published in 2022, and it's called Husk. Was she yellowing? I poured her water, kept her towels cracking clean. But between her tubes, her heart fluttered fast, an intricate machine filled and refilled, a finch tail touched and untouched. Her face was an upturned sunflower in winter, a faraway glass oiled by my wet eyes. God flicked her tiny seed that morning, picked me for the responsibility to say, it is the hour for stopping.
I like that idea of stopping, as part of grief. Beautiful poem. I'll give a moment for Stewart's or Nicholas if you'd like to read. I'm just kidding. Stewart's are my family. I know they're not going to read their poems out loud. Maybe one day. Well, thank you all so much for being here and being together to talk about a difficult topic of loss. But I also think it's interesting how there were some beautiful parts that were pulled out of this idea. This will be posted on YouTube, so you can check it out there, and I'll put the link on my Instagram. Please stick around for Three Women, Three Books next on the hour. And thank you so much for being here. I'm going to stop recording, but you can stay around if you would like.
Is it the same Zoom link for the next meeting?
Yes, same
Okay.
one. You can leave
All right.
and come back.
Great.
Thank you, Rachel. That was so amazing.
Thank
you,
you.
Rachel, for having me. That was great to read.